Have you ever thought that maybe it's time to declutter? And then you look at the clutter and you get more than a little overwhelmed. And you're thinking, why is this so difficult? Why is it so hard? Well, it turns out that just making the decision to declutter is a huge step in the right direction, but there are so many things that can interfere with our ability to actually create that calm and wonderful space that we are all looking for. I'm so excited because today my guest is my dear friend and colleague, Heather Aardema. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about her, and we are going to dive in. You're going to be amazed at what we're going to learn today. Heather Aardema is a national board and functional medicine certified health coach. She's the founder of School of Living Lighter, a weight loss methodology grounded in minimalism, functional medicine, and cognitive behavior. By releasing the clutter in their minds, bodies, and homes, her clients, hundreds of clients, by the way, have actively started living lighter as they tackle their clutter, uncomplicate their lives, and lose weight for good. She's been featured on a number of popular wellness and minimal platforms such as No Sidebar, Minimalism Life, Becoming Minimalist, Optimal Living Daily, and Optimal Health Daily. She has a whole bunch of DIY courses and a whole bunch more. And right now we're just going to dive in and start talking about what you really need to know. Heather, thanks so much for being here.
Mira, my friend, thank you so much for having me.
You know, one of the things that I first learned from you, which really was a mind shift for me, was how when we think of clutter, we tend to think of the physical clutter in our environment. But it turns out there's actually different kinds of clutter that can get in our way.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's so much more than a closet that's bursting with stuff or a countertop that you haven't seen in months and months. I like to think of clutter as anything that gets in the way of where you are and your vision for your best self, your vision for your best life. So clutter can be, and often is, thoughts, really heavy thoughts that are telling you, maybe they're telling you you're not enough or you're too much. Clutter can be a lot of the food that we're putting into our bodies that are weighing us down and making us feel sluggish and tired. And then clutter can also be the messages that are coming into your home. So for example, if you've got the TV on all day long and it's to the news, that sensationalism is a form of clutter. It's not doing you any good. So yes, I like to think of clutter. I mean, clearly it's definitely the things, and we have a lot of things, and we can talk about why we have those things, but it is so much more than just the tangible, just the physical.
You know, and that's such a great point, because I think sometimes we get so used to what's around us that we don't realize how much it's weighing us down until we get to a point where we're totally overwhelmed. So how do we make that shift to begin to climb out of this sort of accumulation phase that then leaves us on top of this mountain of stuff?
Yes, it is a mountain of stuff. And so often people will start to declutter, but they miss a really, really imperative step. They'll begin to put bags together to donate. They'll begin to, decide like these things go to the trash, or these things go to the neighbors, or a garage sale, but they won't stop the inflow of things coming into the home. Mm-hmm. And so what we have going on right now is this equation that is majorly out of balance. We have, Amazon ringing the doorbell, or UPS almost every single day, driving up and down the streets, and the things are just coming in. And here's the thing, it's just so easy to buy whatever you want. It's like, it's at your fingertips. It's just one click away. And we like buying things. I mean, anytime we click that buy now button, we get a flood of dopamine. It feels really good. We can make that flood of dopamine mean whatever we want. So I used to tell myself anytime I bought something, oh, Heather, you are a good member of your family. You are buying things your family needs. You're being productive. I mean, I had a whole litany of excuses for why I was buying these things. And so what you want to get really curious about in the beginning is, okay, I want to lighten my environment.
Mhm.
And yes, you're going to, you'll start to declutter, but ask yourself, are you willing to stop the massive inflow of new things coming into your home? Are you willing to not go with the latest like iPhone version or model? Are you willing to just pause for a while on the buying and use what you have?
And that's, something that's really interesting, that use what you have, because for me, I think my challenge, I mean, yes, obviously there's some acquisition or I would not be in a point of having to declutter, but I'm not a big shopper. Like I really don't enjoy shopping, which for years has made me feel more than a little weird, I have to say. Because, there are some people who are like, oh, let's go shopping together. And I'm like, do we have to? But my challenge is I grew up with a family story that said you save everything because it might be useful one day.
Yes.
And I'm now at a point where I have generations worth of stuff. And some of which my children have made very clear they do not want to inherit from me. So it's my responsibility to rehome it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also means when certain things come in, whether it's something that I intentionally acquired or not, even if it's something I no longer need, it's like, oh, well, we'll just put that aside because we might need it later. How do you let go of that?
Mira, you sound like my husband. and you sound like my parents. I get it. I really do. We really, so there's a few different dimensions here that we can unwrap together. Things like tangible things. So I'm looking at my desk right now. There's a computer, there's a Yeti mug, I've got a phone, I've got a microphone. These things are all meaningless until I put meaning in them. So this is why it's so much easier to go into a friend's house and say, oh my gosh, why do you have all this stuff? And be like, it's just so much easier to declutter because you're not creating the same meaning that your friend is creating. So when we look at our own things, we have created stories around all these things. So for example, for a long time, I was creating a story in my head that I was a better daughter because I loved all my mom's things. And I opened up my house to all of my mom's arts and things. And my sisters didn't. They were a little more refined, or they were a little more like, no, we don't want more. And I decided, I'm like, oh, I'm the best daughter because I'm saying yes to mom. And then I woke up and I realized, oh my goodness, my house has just become a storage unit for my mom. And is this my personality? I mean, I really do like my mom's taste in things, but I decided not to be so eager to open the doors and to pause and ask myself, okay, do we want these things? Do we like the energy of these things? I mean, I will tell you, Mira, we have a painting that's hanging in the living room. It's a gift from my mom, and we've had it up there for a couple of years. Actually, no, I even asked my mom for it. So I liked it. But our tastes are allowed to evolve. We've had it for years, and I just found out about 2 months ago that my husband hates it. So he's walking into our home and then going into the living room and seeing this painting and not liking it. And so it's really interesting, right? Like it's one of those things where when you look around your home, you want to like your things. And if there's anything you don't like, then it doesn't work for the team.
Yeah.
And let go of those things. And some of us might be thinking, well, I love these things, I don't want to let them go. But it's okay for you to think that for some of the things, but just don't think that for everything. And so do it together with your partner. And if there's something that your partner really does not like, find another place that's not front and center to put that thing, because it's you want to create that home that represents both of you and that feels like a safe, relaxing place for both of you.
Yeah. And, I think that's true because theoretically, when you think about it, we each come from a separate family. We could bring a whole lot in just from that generation. Then you go back to the previous generation and all of a sudden it starts to add up to quite a bit. And we're trying to clean out our space and keep it as calm and restful as possible. And so it's hard to do when you have a lot of things.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'd like to shift to a little bit sideways, because I've heard you talk about this before, and I think it's such an interesting concept because most of us don't tend to think about it, body clutter. Can you please share what is body clutter and how do we acknowledge it so that we can move forward?
Okay, so it's all about being really honest with yourself, which can be really hard for ourselves sometimes. So body clutter for me is going to be very different for the next person and the next person. And the reason is because we are all unique. We're chemically unique. And what works for me might not work for the next person. So an example of body clutter for me, one example, tomatoes. I can eat some tomatoes and they will cause havoc inside my body and I will be miserable. I really struggle with nightshades. Another example of body clutter, gluten. So in my body, and actually I think that the majority probably struggle with gluten, but maybe not totally realize that. But gluten can cause a lot of inflammation in my body. It can cause a lot of fatigue. And so these are things that I'm putting, well, no longer, but these are things that I used to put into my body. And there was a net negative. So after consuming these things, I felt worse than before consuming those things. And so when you think about body clutter, ask yourself, is it more of a negative experience, a heavier experience, or is it a lighter, more positive experience? Another example, alcohol. So I spent a lot of my younger years drinking a lot of alcohol and enjoying that alcohol. And then a few years ago, probably 5 years ago, I decided that I didn't really like, I mean, I did like the taste of some, but that I didn't like how I felt afterwards. I was always swollen. I always had acne on my forehead after alcohol. And I decided that I felt complete without it. And so that alcohol in my body is behaving more like clutter. It's getting in the way. It's an obstacle between how I really want to show up and how I would show up when I would drink. And so anything that is feeling heavy to you is clutter. Now, are all things bad? No. So I think this is a really important point. So cake. I love cake. I really do love cake. Now, I'm really careful about the cake I eat. So I will make a grain-free cake. I'll put some lovely icing on it. I'll make sure I know where the icing is coming from. I know what the ingredients are, and I can enjoy that cake. For me, I know ahead of time that I'm going to have the cake, and it's a lovely experience, and there's no regret or shame afterwards. A lot of my clients are working on letting go of weight. And so sometimes they'll eat the cake, but it won't be planned. It'll be more spontaneous. And then afterwards, they'll have regret or shame or frustration. And those feelings are another form of clutter. They're low in terms of their vibrational energy, and they're not really doing any good. And so that's how I like to look at body clutter, is really, what are these things coming into the body? And it goes beyond food and alcohol. It's also what's the soap that you're using? What's the shampoo that you're using? Are you drinking clean water? All of those elements are so important.
And I love that you're also talking about developing that deeper awareness of what does or doesn't work for you. For example, you can't do nightshades, and I know nightshades are not a problem for me, but there are other things that disagree with my body. I don't feel good when I eat them. And when we stop and tune in, our body really does let us know. And I especially love the thought of releasing some of the negative emotions. I know one of the biggest challenges for a lot of people is sugar, in part because food producers stuff it into just about everything, because biologically we're programmed to react to that. And I have this theory that I share with my clients that I talk about called 3 cookie syndrome. And 3 cookie syndrome is where the package says 2 cookies is a serving, and you eat 3 cookies, and then you go, oh, what the heck? And then you finish the entire sleeve of Thin Mints. Whereas if you had simply said, you know what, I'm going to have 2 cookies and I'm really going to enjoy those cookies and be okay with it. Or if you had a third cookie, go, okay, you know what, I ate another cookie and it was delicious and I don't need to do that again for a while, but it's such a hard shift for us. And so I guess in a way that's a form of mental clutter, that self-languaging that we put on top of everything else that's going on.
Yeah, what you're talking about is resistance to what is. And so that is so heavy. Oh my goodness, you're totally right. If you eat the 3 cookies, decide to learn something from it and move forward. Don't make it mean that you're a failure. Don't make it mean that you fell off the wagon. I hate that term, fall off the wagon. I think it's horrible. Just say, oh, I did that. I don't really like the results. I'm going to keep going the way I was going before. And frankly, if you decide ahead of time about the cookies, I say to my clients all the time, I don't care if you have 4 cookies or 5 cookies. Show yourself that you can honor the decision that you're making with your adult brain. And then get really curious. Like if you do eat the whole sleeve, get really curious, like what was it that you were really hungry for? And there's a couple different things going on when you eat that whole sleeve. The physiology, right? And so I will tell you, when I used to eat gluten, I was very, very addicted to it. I had trouble. I could eat 4 bagels in a row, Mira. I mean, I am 5'4". You can see a lot of extra bagels on a person that's 5'4". And I felt like the bagels controlled me. I now make bagels that are grain-free, gluten-free, and I can eat one and totally enjoy it. And I don't have that addiction like I felt like I had with the gluten. So when I let go of gluten in my life personally, it opened up so much more space for me to think about other things than food. I used to obsess about food all the time. And I was always thinking, when am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? And I just got really tired of having that be the big conversation in my head. And so I let go of gluten. My life got much lighter. My body got much lighter. And it was easy to let go of the gluten because there are so many non-gluten alternatives. You just have to be careful because a lot of them are kind of white paste and not so healthy. And you don't want to, just rely on those foods. You want to make sure you get some whole foods too, as you know.
Sure.
For sure. But yeah, so you've got the physiology with that, with the sleeve of cookies. I can tell you, if I decided to go back and eat a gluten, it'd be very hard for me to stop, and I'd probably eat the whole sleeve. But if I am very intentional about the type of cookies, I can decide ahead of time how many I'm going to have, and then I can honor that. It's a process, isn't it? There's psychology and there's physiology.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of mindfulness that goes into that.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted to start somewhere with decluttering, and obviously the answer is different for everybody in terms of what we're decluttering, but what is a good way for people to get started? Like, how do we begin that process?
Okay. So if we're talking about physical items, what I see happen often is we will get excited about decluttering, and then we will convince ourselves that it's way too hard and we'll never stop. And we'll do that because we'll say, oh, but what am I going to do with the china from my great grandma? Or we'll say, but am I going to do with this thing? And we'll come up with like the hardest things to let go of instead of just going for the low hanging fruit and starting. And so I like to suggest that before you begin the decluttering process, that you pause, you slow down, and you get really curious, like, why do I want to do this? What will this help enable? How do I need to show up so that this doesn't become a problem 3 years from now and I'm doing it again? And really listen to what your intuition tells you and get really, really curious about that. And once you figure out what matters most to you in terms of decluttering, it's a lot easier to get started. But there's another step that I want to say, and I want to include for people to think about before they actually start doing. So often we'll come up with a plan and we'll get really excited about it. And then we pivot quickly to like, oh, but I can't because of this reason and that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, or so people will say, well, then what do you do? Right? What do you do? Because then you're stuck. So I suggest you get really curious about what all those reasons are, and you do a thought download on paper. So what are all the excuses that you have for why you can't
Oh, I
start?
love that. So that way you
Mhm.
can answer them before you begin.
Before you begin. And
That's so great.
it's one of those, like, you write down all those excuses, and then on the top of the column, you write a false. And then on the next column, you write down what's the deeper truth. And for example, if you're trying to change your diet, or if you want to eat healthier, sometimes an excuse will be like, oh, but I can't because family's coming into town. But then the real truth of the matter is they want me to feel good. They don't care what I'm eating. They care more about what they're eating. Or we'll say, I can't get rid of this gift because I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. But really, the deeper truth is that person would rather the gift be used and have you gift it to somebody else than to go unused in a closet. So get really curious about those thoughts that, if you don't adjust ahead of time, will keep you stuck. And then you're ready to start learning. And so you're ready to start experimenting. And I think the most helpful suggestion I can give is that when you are going through your things, is to ask yourself, I mean, there's so many philosophies out there. You've got so many really amazing people giving advice. But what I don't see out there is, basically, you can ask yourself a simple question. If you pull out a shirt from the closet, ask yourself, when I look at this, do I feel heavy or do I feel light? If you feel heavy, it goes to the donation center, or it goes to a friend, or it becomes a rag, and reuse it in your home. If it feels light, ask yourself a second question. And the second question is, okay, it feels light, but does it feel light that I've had it this long and I've worn it this much? So for example, I had this really beautiful shawl, and I had it for years and years and years. I paid a lot of money for it. And so when I looked at it, it felt light. But when I asked myself, do I like the fact that I've never worn it in all these years? That felt heavy, and that was my permission to let it go and give it away. So that can help with decluttering. But I do want, again, to emphasize that if you don't stop the things coming into the house, and there are a lot of forces at play. So there's something called planned obsolescence, where you'll notice, like, our refrigerators don't work as well as they used to. Or you get a new phone, so now you need a new charger. That's all strategy and business and marketing and so forth. But there's also something called perceived obsolescence of, my phone's just it's not cool enough anymore. Like, look at the phone I have. It does not have like the 3-camera thing on it, And so there's been a thought in my head, like, oh, maybe I should go get the new one. No. And so be just conscious of the planned and the perceived obsolescence. And then also, so often we will take everything to the donation center and forget about it and feel so much better. And then we keep buying things. And this is a global problem. We are creating global clutter right now. And this is really hurting smaller economies. So because of fast fashion, so on average, we'll wear our clothing 7 times before it starts its way to the dump. And 7 times, that's
Wow.
it.
That's hardly anything.
That's
That
on
means your
average.
cost per wear in some cases is astronomical.
Oh, it's enormous, right? And then, but think of the cost for the planet too. And so, and because of fast fashion, our things are made more cheaply. And that was probably grammatically incorrect. Anyway, that is maybe some mental clutter that I should have better grammar. But our things are made poorly. And so when they go to Goodwill or the donation centers, if they can't be sold, those things are then shipped to Africa, and merchants will then try and give these clothings a second life and sell them. And they are really, really struggling because the quality is no longer there. And so it's disrupting all kinds of economies just because we want that cheap shirt, just because we want that, oh, I want to be trendy. I want to be, I want to stay up with the Kardashians. It's not even the Jones anymore. It's the idea of keeping up with celebrities and buying more and more and showing your success through all these material possessions.
That's, you have given us so much to think about. Oh my gosh. And I like how you broke it down into planned obsolescence and perceived obsolescence, because I think for a lot of people, the perception is something that gets us without even realizing it, because we're marketed to all the time. There's messaging and, cues around us that we don't even really stop to acknowledge, and it's having an impact. So that's really fascinating.
It's a huge impact. And Mira, I want to tell you, I spent 20 years in corporate and I worked in advertising, and I used to make commercials for a lot of the big brands that you'll see. And it was my job to come up with the idea that would hook people into the commercial.
Wow.
And the idea that would make them feel like their lives are not complete until they bought my client's thing. That was the standard for success. And we did focus groups, we did all kinds of research, qual and quant, to figure out is this the right way to position and message these material possessions, so that it's all psychology. It's fascinating. But it's kind of funny that was my job for so long.
And now you've made this huge shift to the
and then I realized, oh my gosh, I don't want to be that maximalist anymore. I love the idea of minimalism and being intentional. Minimalism to me is not stark, and it's not deprivation. It's more of an abundance of peace of mind, abundance of space and time. And doesn't that sound good? Right?
I love that. Oh. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heather, this has been really, really fabulous. Like I said, you've given us so much to think about. I know one of the huge projects that is so near and dear to your heart is School of Living Lighter. Can you tell us just a little bit about that and how people can find you?
Yeah. So School of Living Lighter, that is that's basically my business. So you can go to schooloflivinglighter.com. And it's on social media. Facebook, it's School of Living Lighter as well. Facebook, it's Heather Aardema. It's my name. And on my website, I have lots of different resources. I like to process life through writing. And so I have lots of essays all about wellness and well-being and intentionality and simplicity. And so the website's got a lot of resources there. And then if it's okay, can I mention healing habits?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
Okay. So healing habits has been, oh my goodness, this has been such an amazing project. So my co-host, Dr. Rob Downey from Homer, Alaska, we decided to create a summit that was focused on habit change. So there's a lot of really good information out there. So much good information. But what we feel is missing is the inspiration and motivation and education that will get you started, that will get you moving forward on your journey towards a healthier life. And so we've pulled together interviews with over 40 individuals. These are folks that are specialists in behavior change, psychologists, functional medicine practitioners, and it is a powerful, powerful experience. And so this summit will be online and air for free from March 21st to the 27th.
That's fabulous. And that is such a great way for people to get started, because you're right. There's a lot of habit changing that has to happen in order to, because you brought up such a good point earlier. We can sometimes clean out, but if we don't stop the inflow, we wind up right back where we started. And so learning to recognize that, learning to build those habits is such a great way to get started and to really then intentionally move forward with decluttering your home, your life, your mind, your existence. So I love that you guys are doing that. And you're both such amazing practitioners and great presenters. I can't wait to see this.
It's going to be a lot of fun. If we look at where we are in life, and then we look at where we want to be, and there's a gap there. embracing new habits and letting go of old habits will close that gap. I mean, it is a mathematical equation. And if you look at where you are in life right now, it's 100% a reflection of the habits that you've had to date. And so it's a powerful topic. There's so much that we can do with this. And I think it's going to really flood people with inspiration, and people are going to start showing up really how they want to. So thank you so much for letting me share that.
Oh yeah, no, thank you so much for being here. This has been really wonderful. It's been great to talk with you. Folks, I'm going to put the information that we talked about down below so you'll be able to connect with Heather, with School of Living Lighter, plus with her amazing summit. And please remember to subscribe, hit like, and if you click that bell, you'll find out when we have more videos to share. Thanks so much for being with us. Heather, thank you. Have a great day, folks.